Welcome to the Opinionated Benchwarmers Podcast 168. Your opinionated benchwarmers are back to do what we do best, and that's discuss sports. The best is in the building. What's up, fellas? How y'all feeling?
Man, feeling good, man. We finally here. We made it to the off season, man. That was kind of brutal. As three Lakers fans watching what's going on, I know we're gonna touch on it, but we finally here. The off season to time to turn this thing around and get this thing right. But let's do it, fellas.
Man, maybe I should have went first and let the optimism come after me because I haven't been doing well since everything transpired last night. You know how those rivalries are. Definitely don't feel good to see Boston win, especially to see them get number 18. So honestly, it hasn't been the best, but just trying to move forward. And pretty much, as Los has alluded to, man, we just got to go ahead and focus on this off season. So I ain't gonna hold it, man. We can jump straight into it.
Well, fellas, here we are. As you said, we was gonna record last night, but and get that out this morning. But it was like, man, nah, we gonna take our time with this one, man. I want to preface this by saying you're listening to three Lakers fans, so we're gonna try to get through this NBA coverage, and then we're gonna get in and get out of there. But first off, man, welcome to the YouTube channel. It's your first time listening to us. We appreciate all the love and support. Shout out to the reoccurring listeners. Shout out to all the subscribers that's been showing love. Almost up to 700. We only been on this thing for a month and a half. We appreciate the love and support, the views that we've been receiving on YouTube. Make sure that you like this video if you like the episode that you've heard today. And make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube. That's the only way you can get access. That's not the only way, but hey, why not get notified of the content that we drop? And then, of course, subscribe to the podcast on whatever your favorite podcast platform is. You name it, Spotify, you name it, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, if that's still a thing, Stitcher, if that's still a thing. You get the point. Make sure that you subscribe. That's how you can show love to us. Fellas, we're jumping into it right now. And I'll preface this again. We're all Lakers fans, so we're not going to sound all happy about this. But of course, though the green team, the Boston Celtics, are NBA world champions, happened last night against the Dallas Mavericks. We'll dissect the game a little bit. We'll talk about some legacy stuff in this thing. But first off, let's lead off with our initial thoughts here. I guess I'll lead off with the negativity, as Ramon said. Not happy as a rival, but I will say this: I am kind of happy about Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum just as people. They just landed on the wrong team. It's not their fault. But to see the success that they've had throughout their career and only be 25 years old, still a lot of more basketball to play. And Jason Tatum is one of those guys. I think that there's a bigger story within the story, but what more, like you said, what more can you say? He got him a championship. But as a Lakers fan, it just hurt that they finally have more championships than us. And I, for one, I'm kind of sad. I turned it off probably like after the third quarter and went to bed because that's how hurt I was.
Yeah, I've been catching a lot of slack, all day. Everybody in my office kind of know that I'm a Lakers fan. And, like, remind me how many championships the Lakers have? Oh, how many championships the Boston Celtics have now? All those type of jokes. So it's all good. It happens, and I think one that's not being talked about enough is we can blame this on the Milwaukee Bucks, man. They pretty much handed the Celtics a championship. Anytime you get rid of Drew Holiday, a guy that's helped them win a championship in his first year, and then you move over, right? And then you put him on the Celtics, right? And he was like the glue of this team. It's not talked about enough of all the small things he did in the big ways he showed up in two of these games. His defense he played on Luka and Kyrie. He is the glue. That team is not winning without him. And that's not a disrespect to Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. It was just so many times I was just watching the games like, how many rebounds is this guy doing? Obviously a guy that's probably got a little money on the game, but it's like, why does he keep getting these rebounds? Why is this, he's everywhere. He was just doing everything. So, again, frustrating to watch. And the most frustrating part about this, and I tweeted this out yesterday, was um, this team ain't going anywhere. They don't have any key free agents leaving this offseason. Everybody, even down to Sam Hauser, he's a team option, to come back. So they can decide to bring him back, but they're not losing any key free agents. So they can make the same run next year. Hopefully the East is a little bit more healthier going into the season. But right now, it's frustrating looking at how good that team is.
Yeah, I think to kind of piggyback off that, honestly, I mean, it's difficult to say it, but also too, you got to give credit where credit is due with Brad Stevens. I think that move of him going into the front office was, much maligned when it happened. People felt that, okay, why is he getting this opportunity? He as a coach hasn't really gotten them over the top or over the hill. But you look at the kind of the key moves that he's made, throughout his time of shoring up that team, to move a guy like Marcus Smart that people felt was that emotional and vocal leader, and being willing to move him, getting Kristaps Porzingis over there, even as it relates to the injuries and things of that sort. Going out and getting Drew Holiday, as you mentioned, which in my opinion and estimation ended up being an upgrade from Marcus Smart. Making the move that he made, what is that, 2 or 3 years ago now, and going and getting Derek White. Shoring up that team around those guys. It's kind of been that maybe debate for a little bit of time of, is it Jason Tatum's team? Is it Jaylen Brown's team? Do they have the right people around them? And Brad Stevens, sure enough, built it around them in the best possible way that you can build around those two guys, and built in a way that it wasn't dependent on those two guys being great night in and night out. Just as you alluded to and mentioned in Drew Holiday, especially that game 2 performance, really you can attribute that win in game 2. That was a critical win for them to Drew Holiday, among several others. And so it's kind of difficult. Obviously, you see, I can't get too high in talking about this. It's definitely difficult as a Lakers fan to see it. And like I said, I've just been kind of sick since it transpired, man. Just been kind of sick as a Lakers fan. But still, all in all, we got a job to do. We got to do what we do. And that's to evaluate these things from an objective standpoint. And so that's kind of what, my mind goes to.
Yeah, I mean, the game was over probably like 6 minutes into the first quarter. When you look at trends, and I think that when the Boston Celtics went up, probably about, it went up by 10 points. A couple threes transpired there. The first 6 minutes was interesting because I feel like neither team could get their foot in offensively. You saw Luka with two boneheaded turnovers in the first quarter in the beginning to lead things off, missing easy layups, complaining to the refs as always that he was fouled. Kyrie couldn't get it going. Very timid. I don't know. We'll get to that in just a second, but Boston just seems to be his kryptonite, and just playing in the garden, in Boston's garden, it's really a kryptonite to Kyrie, and he's a shell of himself. And I mean, I looked at it. I was taking notes as I was watching the game. And, one thing that stood out to me was Josh Green, right? Josh Green looked like he was the only guy that really came fired up and ready to play. And, they were able to get some shots from PJ. They was able to get some offense. I think they was able to get at least 1 3 from Derrick Jones. And I was like, okay, these at one point in the first quarter or in the first half, I was like, okay, they're getting a little bit of something from the role players. I mean, Kyrie, we need you. We're going to need about 25 to 30 points from you. But it just didn't happen on his end. And okay, Luka ended the game with 29 points and does what he do night in and night out. But it just seemed like offensively, they just never felt comfortable. I felt like they never offensively could get into rhythm. And that's a credit to what Lowe said with, of course, obviously, Drew Holiday, probably one of the most underrated defenders that we have in our league. And I think he's just an underrated player and a gritty player, a selfless player. When you look at where he came from, you look at his usage in Milwaukee compared to his usage in Boston. You can't tell me that he's not the most unselfish player that we have in the league. And he gave up a lot offensively, and he'll step in offensively when it's time. And he did that throughout this series, like Ramon mentioned. But defensively, in the intangibles and his leadership, you can't put that on the stat sheet. But Boston is going to be a problem, like you said. I mean, they can guard 1 through 5. I don't think they're going to take another step forward. I think even with Tatum dropping 30 and 8, I think he had 38 and 11 last night. I still say that, this playoff run that he still haven't put it all the way together yet. So if he's able to take that step and be that killer that he potentially that he is throughout the regular season, man, Boston gonna be a problem. I don't see anybody beating them. If anybody I was to guess, maybe the Bucks or the Knicks may give them a problem.
No, I think that's great. And I mean, just looking at their team and just watching how it unfolded last night, I do have a question for y'all. Do y'all think Jalen Brown was deserving of that MVP award?
Jalen.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
Yeah,
you think he was
I think
deserving?
so. Yeah, I think Jalen was deserving of it. I think, you know, throughout this finals, I think that he really, consistently, I think he averaged just over 20 points a game, 21 points a game, somewhere around there. And I think that he just was so impactful. And I think that there were some games where Tatum wasn't his shelf. He had that, I think that was what game 3, was it, that he had like 11 assists or something. Jason just never really looked comfortable to me besides last night. But maybe the game before as well, like the game before last, what was it, game 4, I think.
it was game 3 that really he kind of took it on his shoulders because game
Yeah,
3 was the big game of them going to Dallas, and Jason Tatum really kind of showed up and kind of put the series away, honestly, in that game.
I think it's just the leadership of Jalen that he displayed. I'm a huge Jalen proponent. I think what he does on both sides of the court stands out, and I think he was deserving of it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those that could have gone kind of either way. You know, you have two different situations of, Jalen Brown being the more consistent player, Jason Tatum having to be the higher peaks, but also the lower valleys. But when you look
Yeah,
over the
that's a good way to
course,
put it.
yeah, when you look over the course of the series, I mean, Jason Tatum did lead them in points, rebounds, and assists. He was the fourth player in NBA history to do that for a team in a final series. And I think that before that, I know at least two out of those three guys, if not all three, actually won the Finals MVP for their team. So this was kind of historic to see him do that and to not win it. So if I were to pointedly answer your question of who I felt like, did he deserve it? Yes, he could have deserved it. If it would have came down to me, I probably would have gone Jason Tatum over Jalen Brown.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit in agreement with you. I just think the impact of what Jason Tatum brought to that team as far as the assists, right? The assist was a huge thing. I think he had close to double digits or more than double digits, like 3 out of the 4 or 5 games or something crazy like that. So, and then you look at the numbers as a whole. Jason Tatum averaged 25, 7, and 7, and Brown averaged 20 points, 5, and 5. To me, it went into the narrative, though, right? We talk about the narrative, the big thing going into the playoffs, and as the playoffs started, it was a big thing that Jalen Brown was left off all the all star the all teams, right? And so I think that narrative pushed a lot of this. And he came out and said, "Yeah, I'm okay. I know I'm never gonna win anything, right?" It seemed like a lot of this came from that narrative, and people were voting for him. I know a lot of the top people votes for who they want to choose and whatnot. I'll be interested to see how close that vote was, but I think Jason Tatum definitely, in my book, I think especially finishing in this last game and the impact he had to kind of close them out, I think he deserved it. I think he did enough to deserve it. I'm not saying Jalen Brown didn't deserve it. I'm okay with him having it, but looking at it as a whole, I would have been like, okay, you had the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, but Jason Tatum deserves this one here. And to me, again, if you ask me today who I'm taking between Brown and Tatum, I'm gonna take Tatum, and that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I take Bron. I think during this playoff run and just collectively over the years and watching their development through the postseason, I think that chasing Tatum a lot of times, like I said, has been inconsistent. He's had the peaks and valleys. I mean, we saw it in this series. He had 16 game 1, 18 game 2. He did have the 12 assists. But I don't know. I just feel like he does have those games where he can drop 30, and I think that he has that potential to do that every night, night in and night out. And I do think that Porzingis does play a part into it because I do feel like he doesn't know. It seems like he concedes a lot, to Porzingis. But either way, like it could go either way. But I just like Brown and the aggression that he brought. But I think that's enough of talking about them. They got 18, we got 17. Hopefully, the Lakers make some move. We will touch on a little bit. Coaching Cirques, we was throwing for a limb. We had our guy. We were excited to record the next night, and then it's announced that Dan Hurley passed on us and decided to stay at UConn. So he will not be the head coach of Lakers. And then obviously it's been reported that JJ Redick interviewed this past weekend to be our head coach, and all signs point that he will be our next head coach, but we don't know yet. It's not official or anything, but the signs look like it. But thoughts on Dan Hurley, man?
No, I was frustrated. I was frustrated with the whole situation, and I think you all can say that it was just one of those things where I feel like we were used. Our name and our likeliness was used again, and we see this time after time. You can watch this off season after off season with coaches, with players. Just mention the Lakers are interested, and then it seems like these teams get right. These teams either pay their coaches. You know, you can even go down to Jason Kidd, Ty Lue, all coaches that could would do to become free agents or free agents within a year. You know, they mentioned that hey, the Lakers are a little interested if the window's open, and then all of a sudden they get an extension, you know, or get paid big money. And it's the same thing with Dan Hurley. I think Woj is a player that or an insider that wrote a story, right? It came out that he wrote a story on actually Dan Hurley's dad, right? And so that already shows there was some type of connection there. And so it's a win-win. It was mighty funny that this story broke right before the NBA Finals started, right then, and then you carry the storyline all weekend until the next game comes. You know, oh hey, he's interested, this, that, and the other, and then you know the money is leaked out, exact numbers. We know who that came from again, Dan Hurley, and then just for him to take 20 million less. You know, with UConn. So again, it tells me right there that he was playing a negotiation game. He was playing a getting his name out there, and you know, I don't think he ever took the Lakers really serious. I don't think he ever wanted to leave, you know, and to me that upsets me because again, I understand it's business, but it upsets me because you're playing this game and you're playing emotion, especially when you got fans involved.
Yeah, I echo some of the same sentiments, and so I won't rehash a lot of it. I think that two things for me that kind of stick out a little bit negative in the process too is that you're starting to hear more and more, even as it relates to Dan Hurley or JJ Redick, that there are other people in different camps that are trying to basically dissuade or persuade guys not to go and coach for the Lakers, and giving kind of a litany of reasons of why not to take that job. And so I think that maybe that's a little point of frustration there. But I will say, I know that we typically, of course, sit here with our Lakers hats on and things of that sort. I'll try to kind of take it off just for a second, just to kind of be objective for the podcast and saying that the front office also has to look at themselves, in the mirror. If you really look at our franchise over the last, where you say 10 years or whatever of that sample size and how long we've really been sticking with guys at that head coaching job. So you look at a situation where, we played games with Ty Lue when we really could have got Ty Lue to be our coach, but we didn't want to offer him that long-term deal. Then, of course, we know the story with Frank Vogel. Yes, he did come and win a championship, but we know how that kind of went towards the end of that. You bring in Darvin Ham, that doesn't end up being a fit, and we're letting him go soon. We know what happened in times past with Luke Walton. So just saying it to say it hasn't been a lot of stability at that position, and I think part of it is really, the front office has to look themselves in the face of have one, they've been selecting the right guys, and two, have you been playing it a little bit too safe before going to a situation like Dan Hurley, and it's put you in a position where now your job is looking a little bit less attractive. And so I just say that with kind of taking the Lakers hat off just for a second. Obviously, as a Lakers fan, though, it is frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of disagree. I agree, but I kind of disagree. I thought you were about to lead me into it, but I think that we lowballed Dan Hurley a little bit to leave a situation where he's won back-to-back championships. He's not dealing with the egos that he have to deal with the NBA, and then to make him an offer of 5 years, $70 million, and have him be like the sixth highest paid coach in the NBA. I mean, I don't think that it probably was. I don't think Dan really maybe thought it was really worth it. When you look at a Steve Kerr making 17 and a half, I think if we were the Lakers, we felt like we could have paid him more and we have the money to pay him more. Why not give him the offer? I think that we didn't lay the offer out there. And I think Dan had to make a decision whether he was going to deal with everything that the NBA takes, 82 game season, dealing with the egos, having to coach the pressure of coaching Braun, and then it jumps into your point, Ramon. And then you're looking at the last two coaches. One won a chip, and then the other one got us to the playoffs 2 years in a row. And we got rid of him as well. So I think that Dan was just like, is it really worth me taking this? Is it really worth me taking this amount of money? And I'm set to be probably the highest paid college coach. I can continue building what I built in UConn and not have to deal with that pressure or that situation with the Lakers. So I was upset, and I frankly was very, very upset when I first heard it. But then when I started to kind of, look at the table, I could kind of really see how he made that decision.
Oh, you're not gonna let the listeners
Yeah,
know about your IG story?
Oh yeah, I was really pissed about if you follow me on IG, man, I really was highly highly pissed about highly upset about Dan Hurley. But once I started cooling off and started kind of looking at the numbers, I'm like, damn, we could have gave him a little bit more of a better offer for him to leave a situation like he got in UConn. He got UConn eating out of his hand right now. He got college basketball eating out of his hand, and then we offer him to be the seventh paid highest in the NBA. We could at least gave him a top three pick, a top three offer to be one of the highest paid coaches in the NBA. I feel like that would have got him, but I feel like we just didn't give him the right number.
yeah. I mean, I'm gonna disagree with that too. I just think again, I think that was a fair offer that the Lakers offered, and I think it's business. And for a guy that, yes, he's dominating college, but how many times have we seen college coaches come in and not do nothing or do much, right? It's a whole different ball game. So to come in and not really have any track record in the NBA game and to become a top three paid coach, I'll be kind of questioning what the heck the Lakers doing at giving this guy top dollar and he hasn't proven nothing at this level. Again, we've seen the great coaches do their thing, dominate, win championships, come to the league and do zero. And so to make him a top three and to give him a better offer than what he was getting and what he took at UConn, I think it was a fair deal. Again, it goes to me. I think he was never leaving anyway. And it's been reported that he wanted a team on the East Coast. His wife was really upset, didn't really want to go to the West Coast. Again, I think this was all a publicity stunt. It was all played with Woj. He never really wanted to. And I did see the interview, him coming out like, yeah, there was a number out there, and whatever that number is, that might have made me come off. No, I don't think that's not real talk. Like you never gave the Lakers a negotiation, you never had a counter offer, none of those things. You just kind of said, no, I'm not gonna do it. If you want to negotiate, you want to actually make that move, you're going to negotiate, you're going to do that move. Again, I think it's because one, he's probably not set to make this move right now. And two, he's probably got his eyes on one of those East Coast teams, i.e., the Knicks, somebody like that, for that job to come open. He ain't got to move his family across the U.S. But again, that's my thoughts.
I think there's always a number. I know it's always a number for me. So I think there's always a number. And I feel like that, top three payment is the number. Now, from your perspective, yeah, I agree. If it may not be worth it, and obviously it wasn't worth it for us to go give him that number. But I feel like if you're going to try to lure somebody like him that has had success and his track record and his resume does mean something, you got to pay the man. And I don't think, we didn't do it.
You don't
And
think top 10 is fair? A top 10 deal is fair?
no, I mean, not. I
You
don't.
got 30 coaches and making him top seven. I'm sorry, top
Yeah.
six. You don't think that's a fair deal?
No, when I'm looking at so when you're looking at leaving and you're making a decision, you know, obviously it's business and both sides have to do what's best for them. So I'm saying from his perspective, why would you leave your situation that you're in right now just for a couple more $1 million when you could, obviously you have to have a bigger number than that for me to leave my situation in UConn. He's built his roots there. He's had a proven track record. So all I'm saying, it may not have made sense for him to make that move with the number that was offered. Now, does it make sense for the Lakers to do it? It's debatable there. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but as for Dan Hurley and just putting myself in his shoes to deal with the headache of the NBA, man, you got to pay me at least $16-15 million a year to
Yeah,
do that.
and I see and I agree with both perspectives. As the Lakers, honestly, I'm not bringing him in at a top three number. I look at guys like Eric Spoelstra, I look at guys like Steve Kerr, I look at guys like Greg Popovich, I look at guys even a Mike Malone that they've earned that they are
Proven.
championship proven coaches. That's at least four guys, if not, if you keep going deeper than that, of guys to me that definitively, I wouldn't have made him a top five guy. So I
But
wouldn't.
Money Williams fourth highest paid, and he hadn't won a chip. So
But
I
that's
mean,
because Detroit
Yeah.
had to do something drastic to even get a
but
good coach.
my point is that potential and what he's done and his track record and what he's done in Phoenix, Detroit was willing to take a chance on a guy like that with pure potential of a coach. So a lot of it when you're paying a coach is not what they're doing, it's probably what you think their ceiling is. If you feel that highly about Dan Hurley to lure him away from two championships back to back and he's building a dynasty, you got to pay him. And that's Dan's perspective. And I think
I
everybody
I
should value themselves that way.
I hear that, but I would still say the Lakers still paid him 20 million more. One, and then two, the Detroit Pistons. I think that's a terrible example because the Detroit Pistons have been terrible since they won in '04. They have not a good track record of doing anything. They'll take anybody right now and pay anybody because one, I wouldn't say Monte Williams again is a great coach, like you said, and like you're alluding to, but they'll take
I think he's a
anybody
good
and pay
coach.
them top dog. I don't know what
Yeah,
he's proven
I
or
think
what he's done.
he's solid, but to that point, I'm not paying him. I think that to the point of really what y'all both said, I think that both sides were fair and honestly what they did. I don't think that the Lakers should have broke the bank, honestly, for Dan Hurley, a guy that hasn't proven anything at that level. And Dan Hurley, I just like you mentioned as well too, I can see, how he made that decision for himself. If they aren't going to break the bank for me, then at this point, then I'm gonna stay where I am. But I do think that to Los's point as well, too, the amount, the $20 million difference, I think that still has to be acknowledged. That's
I just,
$20 million.
I just, my frustration with all this is I just don't think he ever was serious about the deal, and that's the point I'm trying to make is I don't think whatever he can come out and say what he want to say. I don't think he was ever serious about moving from the UConn. I think this was all a ploy to get more money. Shams came out, a guy that's locked in with the Lakers, came out and said, "Hey, he don't think he was serious about moving. He think this was a leverage play, right?" He came out and said that, and I think that the more you look at it, the timing of it coming out, not renegotiating, and coming out later and saying, "Yeah, it could have been a number that did this." All of it just seems like, "Hey, we know what you're doing. The guy that you
But
got to
there's
release
always a
it."
number though. I don't fault him for that. Like
I don't.
like in our in our respective professions, there is a number. I love my job. I love what I do, but there is a number. There's always a number that I will listen to. And all I'm saying is that it may not have been worth it to Dan. It may not have been worth it to uproot his family from coast to coast to take on that situation with Braun. Because with Braun win now. We coaching Braun as a
But
different
that
type of
speaks to my
pressure that's
point,
on there.
though.
So
And we
make it
said on
worth
our
my
last, but
while.
we said on our last podcast, right, that we didn't see how Dan Hurley's style will translate. We'll be interested. That was things that we talked about. So that goes back into our
I
point
don't
of
know if I
thinking.
said that. I don't remember. I could pull the
Yeah,
tape.
I mean, we did.
Yeah,
We
because
we
we
all
talked about the fact that like even the way that he kind of wrangles some of those, younger guys and different things of that sort, it almost is not the same, but kind of that Nick Saban effect that, Nick Saban was
right,
able to make some things work
Right.
at LSU before going to Miami, and he realized I can't treat pro players the same way I was able to treat
right.
college
And
But
players.
that goes back to my point.
that goes to my point too. Maybe we saying the same thing. I'm like, why would he do that if he's not top 5 paid in the NBA? I don't feel like I would make that move if that's the case. You know what I'm saying? Now X's and O's and stuff like that. I think he's a damn good coach. But like you
Right.
said, I mean the egos and managing LeBron, man, you got to pay
Right.
me,
But
man.
that goes the point I was saying with that is I don't think he was ever serious about taking an NBA job right now. Whatever the number was, I think he know that number will be there whenever, right? I just don't think he was serious. I think he was just trying to play a leverage play with UConn. Not saying that or whatever. I know you're saying there's always a number. Sure, but I'm saying he know that number will always be there whenever he decides to make that jump. And so right now he's just gonna try to get paid as much as he can while he with UConn, and I guarantee you that UConn contract probably went up after he heard the Lakers
Oh
numbers.
yeah, they already said they in talks for the highest paid basketball coach in college ball. So, but yeah, anyway, I think we spent enough time there. We'll see where this goes. Are you guys real quickly moving on to the next subject? But before we do, just on that coaching, I want to hear from each of you as Lakers fans. Would you oblige to JJ being our next coach?
I
Honestly, yeah,
yeah, go ahead,
yeah,
brother.
honestly, at this point and the way that things have gone, I would. I'm fine with JJ Redick being the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel like we're settling. Honestly, I'm not the happiest about getting JJ ready because again, we're bringing a guy in that has zero experience. He's going to be a LeBron guy. What is that going to do to the locker room? And I hope if we do bring the guy in, that he brings a strong bench in with him. Like when I say bench, coaching staff, assistant coaches, somebody with experience in these situations. I think he is a good basketball mind. We've seen on the podcast that he does have a good basketball mind, but it's different, man, when you got to lead some guys and get these guys to listen to you. But it can be done. We just seen, was it Manzula? How you say his name? Am I saying that right?
Joe Mazzulla.
Missoula. We've seen him come in out of kind of, I mean, not nowhere, but take over that team and got these guys to listen. So I'm gonna give him a chance. I said I'm gonna give him a chance.
Mine's is quick. I talked myself into it like a month ago. So with all, I mean, he's a good basketball man. He's smart. He's an X's and O's guy. If if what we had got us to where we finished this year, then I mean, you get a guy in there that does know X's and O's and knows how to draw plays and knows how to coach. The only thing he got to figure out is the people piece. And like you said, Los, if you get a strong bench with him, which I think that will happen, and he's a smart guy that's gonna get a good bench with him, he'll be fine. So I like it. So moving on to final piece, NBA, we're gonna keep it there. Free agency is up on us. The NBA draft, summer league is among us. Let's attack the first thing that has always interested us, and that's NBA free agency. Give me your one guy that you're excited to see and predict where he may end up, and restricted or unrestricted.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it simple, and it ain't gonna be exciting, but I'm gonna go with Paul George. I think Paul George is the number one free agent
I'm gonna
out
start
there right
leading
now.
these segments off.
Stole your guy, didn't I? Paul George, and this, if anything was clear this weekend, if anybody watched the finals or the pregame, Paul George was sitting next to Joel Embiid, and they were just kind of flirting, man. It was just obvious as day. It seems
Pause.
like, yeah, Paul's definitely, but it definitely feel like he's going to the Sixers. So I'll be interested to see if that goes through if he goes to actually the Sixers.
Ramon, go ahead. I know you're gonna steal mine though.
Uh, no, I mean, I feel like I could have stole yours. You haven't told me who yours is, but I think I kind of know what direction you might want to go down. So I'm not gonna go down that
Who?
lane,
Go
honestly.
ahead. Nah, do it. You do it. Whatever you got.
Nah, I don't know if you were mentioning this as a top buzz guy. This is just kind of a different one. I know Klay Thompson has been sitting.
Oh, yeah, that's me. Yep.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
I knew that's where you were gonna go. So I'm not
Nah,
gonna
go
go there,
ahead.
man.
Go ahead, man. We
Nah,
wrap it
nah.
up.
You can wrap it up with Klay Thompson. I'll just say, man, a name that's been big out there. That's not gonna shake wavelengths, but I think that Pascal Siakam, I think he'll re-up with the Pacers, and I think that's big for them in their future. We saw them get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think that they need to kind of keep that core together, so they got to make sure they keep Pascal Siakam around.
Yeah, I mean, Klay Thompson, like you said, he's up to be a free agent here. He's unfollowed the franchise on Instagram. So, of course, that always raises an eyebrow within the media. Okay, so yeah, he hasn't looked himself the past 2 years. He's coming off ACL and an Achilles tear in the 2019-21 season. So it takes a little while to get back from that. But if he's able to go into the right situation where he's not, where the team is not expecting him to shoulder the majority of the load, I think that he can be very effective on the back half of his career. So I'm interested to see where he goes. I have no idea where he goes. I'm leaning toward him going back to Golden State and them doing right by him because of the dynasty he's built with them. But who knows? We'll see. But yes, I think we did it again. We appreciate you guys for hanging out with us for this long. We hope that you appreciated the dialogue. Make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast on your favorite platform. Make sure that you are subscribed to this YouTube channel and like this video if you like what you heard today. And obviously, we're here to stay. So we'll see you next time.
Later.
Juneteenth.